This is History's Hidden Weird. I'm Quinn Strange. Let's turn back time and set things on fire. Time. It seems like one of the few constants in our lives. 60 seconds in a minute. 24 hours in a day. And twice a year, we argue about what time it should be. Yes, I'm talking about daylight saving time, that strange ritual where we spring forward and fall back and no one really knows why we're still doing it. But did you know that back in 1918, the fight over daylight saving didn't just spark confusion, it nearly sparked revolution? Riots, strikes, death threats, and a Congress so divided over what time it should be that they almost voted to outlaw daylight altogether. At least that's how critics framed it. Today, we're rewinding the clocks, literally, to tell the bizarre, forgotten story of America's first battle over daylight saving. It was weirder, wilder, and way more violent than you might think. In the early 1900s, timekeeping wasn't nearly as simple or as standardized as it is today. Sure, we had time zones, introduced by railroads in the 1880s to keep trains from crashing, but there was no federal rule requiring anyone to follow them. Towns could, and often did, set their own clocks. In fact, before daylight saving became law, one critic joked that crossing a single state could involve adjusting your watch so many times it would break your wrist. But the idea of shifting the clocks, giving people more light in the evening, wasn't new. It had been floated as far back as 1784 by Benjamin Franklin, who suggested it tongue-in-cheek to save candles. But in modern times, the idea came from British builders and German generals. By the 1910s, countries were adopting summertime to save fuel during World War I. And in 1918, America decided to try it too. Big mistake. On March 19, 1918, Congress passed the Standard Time Act, which did two things. 1. It officially established time zones in U.S. law, and 2. It created daylight saving time. It was supposed to be patriotic, a wartime measure to save fuel and boost productivity. Move the clocks forward 1 hour in spring, and presto, you were using less artificial light, spending more time outdoors, and working more efficiently. That was the idea. But the backlash came fast and loud. Farmers hated it. The sun still rose and set the same way, but now their schedules were off. Animals didn't care about clocks. Crops didn't grow faster. And milk delivery suddenly happened in the dark. Labor unions protested. Some religious leaders called it unholy. Newspapers nicknamed it the devil's time. And in cities like Boston, Pittsburgh, and New York, people rioted. So what did these riots look like? Imagine this, it's 1918. You're in a city just coming out of World War I. The flu pandemic is looming. The economy is rocky. And now the government is telling you that you're wrong about what time it is. Workers showed up late. School children were confused. Factories ran into chaos. In some towns, people just refused to change their clocks. In Pittsburgh, a group of angry steelworkers staged a full walkout, not over pay, not over conditions, but because they refused to work fake time. One of the strangest protests happened in Boston, where a group of citizens gathered outside City Hall and chanted, "Down with the clock." In Chicago, a man reportedly tried to sue the sun, claiming daylight saving was an unconstitutional act of temporal fraud. Spoiler, the case didn't go anywhere. And behind all of this, the government desperately tried to keep things ticking. By the end of 1918, America was exhausted. The war was over. The pandemic had hit. People were grieving, struggling, and absolutely done with daylight saving. So Congress did what Congress does, it argued. A lot. Some lawmakers tried to repeal the law. Others wanted to keep standard time but dropped the daylight part. One furious senator claimed the law was an offense against God and common sense. Another mocked the idea of adding light by saying, if you cut a foot off the top of a blanket and sew it to the bottom, the blanket is not longer. Debates got so heated that Congress literally received death threats over clocks. In one infamous session, a group of angry constituents from rural Ohio stormed the Capitol steps holding signs that read, "Don't mess with time. You can't fool the rooster. Repeal this clock trick." Eventually, in 1919, just a year after it began, Congress repealed daylight saving time. President Woodrow Wilson tried to veto the repeal. He actually liked DST, he was a golfer. Congress overrode his veto. Daylight saving was dead. For now. The funny part? Even after the federal repeal, some cities kept doing it anyway. New York adopted daylight saving again in 1920, so did Chicago and others. This led to the infamous situation where you could take a train from one city to another and lose time, even if you were traveling west. For decades, the U.S. was a timekeeping mess. It wasn't until 1966, almost 50 years after the riots, that the Uniform Time Act brought order to the chaos. Even then, some states like Arizona and Hawaii opted out. And to this day, the debate continues. Bills are introduced every few years to abolish it. Others aim to make it permanent. People still complain, sleep through alarms, and curse the existence of daylight saving every spring. But here's the thing, none of those modern gripes come close to the pure rage Americans felt in 1918. That wasn't a debate. That was a time war. Daylight saving time is one of those weird quirks of modern life, something we all grumble about, but rarely question deeply. But in 1918, Americans really questioned it. They protested. They rioted. They called it unholy. They nearly burned down the idea of time itself. And somehow, that was less strange than trying to explain to your cow why you're milking her an hour early. History has a funny way of repeating itself, even when the clocks say otherwise. This has been History's Hidden Weird. I'm Quinn Strange. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. Stay kind. Stay wonderfully weird.